A drunken joke at a banquet, a late-night dare that should have been laughed off, and a demand no father should ever have to face. But sometimes, out of ruin, comes something far stranger than fate itself. But before we begin, if you're drawn to stories with mystery, meaning, and the otherworldly, to legends passed down as truth, then this is the channel for you. I share new stories each week, drawn from folklore, forgotten history, and strange events that linger at the edge of belief. So tap the like button and subscribe with all notifications on so you never miss what's next. Let's begin. Back in the late years of the Tang Dynasty, on the old road that climbed the ridge east of Linyang County, in what is now modern-day Anhui Province, lamps burned with oil so thick it smelled sweet when the wind came down from the cedars. In a back courtyard behind the local literary society, a group where locals gathered to read, talk books, and sometimes just drink and gamble, there were some men crowded around a low elm table. Cups clicked, dice rattled in a bamboo shaker, and the floor was covered with husks of roasted ginkgo seed. At the end of the table sat Ming, broad shoulders, raw knuckles, a face sun-dark from years of carrying freight on the river. He was fearless at lifting millstones, and equally hopeless at lifting ink from the page. Time and again, he sat for the county exams, and time and again, he failed. In the Tang Dynasty, those exams were everything. The one path from poverty to office, the only way a commoner could rise to wealth and respect. Without them, a man stayed stuck, hauling bricks or carting freight. Each failure hardened Ming. It made him more bitter, more stubborn. And on that night, wine made him loud, and loud drew mockery. "Hey, Ming," a scholar called out, "you strut like a tiger, but your head is as empty as a dried gourd. If you're so brave, bring us something worth a story. Go to the Chamber of Horrors and carry back Judge Lu from the east porch. You do that, and tomorrow we set a feast in your honor." Laughter broke across the table. Ming set down his cup, hard. "Literature doesn't teach courage," he said. "Tonight I'll show you bookworms what courage really looks like." He stood, tied his robe, and walked out into the moonlight. Now, the Chamber of Horrors was a hall for the dead. So in those days, villages kept halls like this to serve as maps for what waited beyond death. So inside, 10 courts were depicted. These were the 10 courts of purgatory. Each court was ruled by a judge, and each judge weighed a life, opening records of birth and sin, measuring debts and kindness, deciding who rose to heaven, who descended to hell, and who returned for reincarnation. The effigies were life-sized, painted with mineral green and cinnabar red. Some looked like demons in tiger skin clothes gripping iron hooks, and others were clerks holding bamboo slips. Ming found the east porch, and there stood the statue of Judge Lu, green-faced, beard painted red, eyes of polished stone. He spat into his palms, rubbed it together, reached up, and set his hand against the statue's arm and hip, picked it up, turned it around the other way and put it back down, just enough to say that he had done the dare. But before he let go, the floor answered with a low drum. The wood under his fingers grew warm, and suddenly the world dropped. Darkness wrapped around him, pulling him down. When he opened his eyes, the judge stood there in front of him. Not the statue, the actual judge. "To touch me is to invite judgment. To remove me is to be cast into hell." The judge's hand then sank into Ming's chest. He felt a hook catch his breath, his soul being pulled out of his body. He cried out, "It was just a dare! It's just a dare!" Everything stopped. The judge loosened his grip. "What did you say?" Wine, scholars, they mocked me. I came because I'm a fool, because they called me a coward. The hand slid free. Rare. A mortal who speaks the truth at the door of death. The voice pressed into Ming's skull. You will prove your courage. Refuse, and your entire line will be bound in chains and cast into hell. Temple walls peeled back in a vision, a pit of fire, ladders of bone, faces of his kin cursing him as they burned. He collapsed. Spare them! I will do anything! The vision snapped shut. The judge said, Your wife is pregnant. When your wife bears your son, you will cut open his chest. Then the figure stilled, and Ming was back. When his son Wei was born, he was strong and perfect, and the family rejoiced. At night, though, Ming saw threatening visions of the judge in his dreams. He got up, placed a knife where the ribs gave, pushed, and blood welled. Wei cried, shrill and thin. Judge Lu appeared, replaced the baby's heart with another, and closed the wound. The next day, the doctor came and asked in shock, What happened? Why is his heart all of a sudden so weak? Why is there a cut here? Now, Ming refused to admit anything. Eventually, poverty crushed them. After Wei's first winter, the kiln yard cut wages. Ming hauled bricks until a fall split his ribs. Cough and fever followed. His wife's mouth thinned. You were a fool in life, and now you die a fool. I know you cut our son. You cut our fortunes. Ming died the next day, buried among the poor. The neighborhood remembered him only as the fool who ruined his child. Wei grew up under that shadow. His chest ached. Climbing stairs stole his breath. Every step of life was harder for him, yet he refused to stop. He studied at night by lamp, copying letters for coin, sometimes until his fingers cramped and the oil was gone. More than once, the flame blew out on its own, leaving him in the dark. Yet somehow, he always found a way to keep working. During the exams, answers came to him quickly. While training at fighting, even though he was weaker than the others, he found ways to slip into movements that surprised his opponents. He fainted in exams, lost clerkships due to his poor health, coughed blood under carts, but always tried again. Boys still chanted, Your father cut your heart, your father cut your luck. One day, a Taoist priest took his pulse. That's odd. You were born strong, he said. Judge Lu did something. Your father was tricked. Rage filled in Wei. Then I will live in spite of him, he vowed. He worked with precision where speed failed him, studied law and handwriting, copied petitions, and earned slow respect. By 29, he had clawed his way to being known as reliable. It hadn't come easy. He took small clerk jobs no one else wanted, worked late nights fixing ledgers, and forced his body through exams again and again just to get a little bit ahead. When others gave in to greed, he exposed corruption in the salt ledgers, earning a name for his honesty. He married, raised 5 sons, and built a life from the scraps people said he would never have. Even so, the old chant followed him, a reminder of the shame of his father. He carried it in silence, never once speaking of Ming, bragging how everything he had achieved was through his own suffering and determination. Age bent Wei's shoulders, his hair silver, his back stooped from decades of labor and service. He lived long enough to see his 5 sons grow and prosper, each finding a place in the world that no one thought their family could reach. Yet in all those years, and even as grandchildren filled his courtyard, he never let go of his anger at his father. He condemned Ming in private, convinced the weak heart had been a curse that he alone had to overcome. He replayed the thought in his head again and again about how much more successful he could have been with his original strong heart. When illness came for him again, he lay dying on his bed, bitter but proud of what he had built. Then The room chilled. His vision blurred. At the foot of his bed stood Judge Lu and his father, Ming. In that moment of slipping away, everything became clear. The new heart was not punishment, but a vessel for clarity, cultivated from beyond by his father's unseen hand. Every fever that broke when death seemed certain, every sudden insight on an exam page, every rival stumbling at just the right moment, it had all been guided. The heart Judge Lu placed was only a vessel, crafted with spaces left inside it. Those spaces were weakness at first, but they were meant to be filled. Each gap slowly packed with wisdom, insight, endurance, and righteousness. The judge showed Ming how to add these gifts from the ghost realm, how to bend chance in his son's favor, how to steady his steps when the world tried to shake him down. From there, Ming whispered lessons into his dreams, shielded his son in moments of danger, and planted resolve from deeper realms no living teacher could reach. He had been by Wei's side his whole life, unseen but never absent. The hatred he carried for his father were chains, literal chains in the ghost realm. Now, as he wept and came to understand the truth, those chains loosened and fell. With the chains gone, Ming started to glow and slowly levitate. Ming presented a ghost sword wrapped in silk, the plain steel etched with the words, "Be bold yet cautious, round in wisdom, square in conduct." "Wei," he said, "my time is over. Now you must continue where I left off. Guide your sons as I have guided you. This family has work yet to do, and greatness to accomplish." He placed the sword in Wei's hands. "Give this to your fourth son. His spirit is set apart. He will do great things for the nation. But he will need this sword and your guidance from this realm." As Ming rose toward the heavens, Wei clutched the blade, tears falling. Then Ming was gone. Judge Lu stepped forward. "Wei, it is now your time to protect and guide your family. I will teach you the ways of the ghost realm, just as I taught your father. But your family's future is in your hands." This story comes from Liáozhāi Zhìyì, or Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, written over 300 years ago by Pú Sōnglíng. It reminds us that what looks like weakness or failure can become the very strength that shapes us. Hidden sacrifices often lay the foundation for greatness. Now, if you'd like to see more stories like this, please help me grow the channel by liking the video. Make sure you are subscribed with all notifications on and leave a comment. Even just a smiley face or your thoughts on the story. I've seen some great discussions happening in the comments. Every share, like, and comment keeps this channel growing. But your journey doesn't have to end here. Step into the full library for every tale I've ever told here. Or wander deeper into the haunted pages of Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio. Cross over into Japan's shadowed legends, or sail into Persia's enchanted world of 1001 Nights. Thanks for watching, and remember, every tale is a doorway to another world. I'll see you in the next story.